And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon, and today I am talking with Ryan Kimler. And Ryan is the founder of Financial Clarity. And if you're a small business owner, you are going to want to listen to this because Ryan has a lot to offer. Ryan, by the way, thanks for squeezing me into your very busy schedule and being on my podcast.
Absolutely. I'm glad that I could do it. Glad I could take the time.
Well, it's going to be a great conversation. Ryan is the founder of Financial Clarity. He does a lot. I mean, you think a lot of times as a CPA or a financial guy, and although he can do those things, what he really is, he's masterful at being what we call a fractional chief financial officer for small business owners, because he doesn't do just the, like tax returns and things like that a CPA does. What he does is he looks at your business, he helps you understand cash flow and profitability and how to use metrics in your business to increase your profit and your revenue business. So it's going to be a phenomenal conversation. Ryan, thanks again for being here. Give us a snapshot, Ryan, who are you? How'd you get here?
Sure, absolutely. So, I really started my career at Illinois State University. I double majored in accounting and finance. And then after that, really went out into the typical corporate world. Started at a CPA firm, serving small businesses. Yep. Somewhere usually between $500,000 and $5 million in revenue. And we were really just doing compliance work, some bookkeeping stuff for tax preparation and doing tax returns and things like that.
Which is a lot of times what typical CPAs are doing, right? Especially right now. I mean, we're on the tail end of, we hope, COVID-19, right? Taxes have been, tax dates have been moved. Louisiana just got hit by a massive hurricane. And I just learned from a CPA that's down there that if he's your CPA, your tax date just got moved again because so that's what CPAs do, right? But you took it to a different level. You do a whole lot more than that for small business owners. And I love how you named your company. It's Financial Clarity. Talk to us about where you came up with that name and why is that kind of what you help do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, from my experience, really working at that CPA firm, what I really come to find was a lot of business owners, they work with accountants and CPAs, and, most of those accountants and CPAs are geared towards compliance and getting your taxes filed every year and basically keeping the IRS off of your back. And the problem with that is that then the business owner, seems to be really underserved by the accounting community that they surround themselves with. Mm-hmm. And most accountants end up wasting a business owner's time by, explaining and reviewing their profit and loss or income statements and tax returns. And instead, what business owners really need is a clear direction, is a clear financial direction, and clarity to move their business forward and make informed decisions, meet their goals and improve profits. And thus, that's really where our firm's name came from, was Financial Clarity. We help small business owners have financial clarity, the ability to make decisions and improve profits.
Yeah. And that's so key. We tell business owners on our clients a lot. I've heard it from Dan Kennedy and other marketing gurus. You have to know your numbers. Okay. And a lot of times they're talking about marketing numbers, cost per lead and things of that nature. And you actually have a spreadsheet that helps with that we're going to talk about, your Financial Clarity dashboard that you're going to make available to people. But other numbers, profit and loss. I mean, I look at my profit and loss statement, right? I can assure you I don't understand it like I should, right? I know what the kind of numbers are, and I know we're tracking ahead of last year, and that's good. But to be able to have somebody like you look into my business and go, oh, what about this? How about this? Are you doing this? You know what, Michael, if we just made these couple tweaks here, you're going to be able to increase your profit by 2% or something like that without really doing anything else in my business. But it comes from the aspect that you understand all this stuff. And for many entrepreneurs, numbers is not our thing. It needs to be our thing, but it's not our thing. I don't want to spend 3 days a week looking at my numbers. I need somebody like you to go, Michael, have you looked at this, right? On a regular basis, because the other thing that hits me is I've got a CPA. I deal with them usually once a year, maybe twice a year, right?
Yes.
You deal with people, you deal with business owners on a regular basis, have monthly checkups. Talk to us about that and the importance of setting those objectives for the year. What are my growth goals? But regular checkups. Talk about how you work with the client and what types of numbers are you talking about when you're working with the client?
Yeah, absolutely. So We do work with clients ongoing. We usually have monthly meetings, if not bi-monthly meetings. And one key thing, important thing to point out is, even if you're constantly looking at and understanding your profit and loss statement, that's a statement that's looking back in time, right? And so what we do as fractional CFOs is we, look at the targets that you've set. We do look at historical data, but we also look at, where are you in comparison to your target? How are you doing? What is the score of your game right now? Are you winning? Are you losing? Are you on pace? Are you not on pace? And, having a meeting on a month, at least a monthly basis, that we can break down and look at those important numbers, cash flow drivers and profit drivers, is super critical and super important. And we also, I like to say, we're almost kind of the easy button for finance and accounting, because you don't have to, as a business owner working with us, you don't have to know and understand, your numbers. I mean, that's a dangerous thing to say, but you let us do the heavy lifting. We come in, we do the analysis, and then we meet with you monthly and basically sum it up for you.
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite quotes came from, I think it was Henry Ford, right? He was in court one day and somebody was talking to him and said, "Mr. Ford, you don't even know how to build a car." He's like, "I don't have to know how to build a car. I just have to know how to push the button on my phone to call the guy in who knows how to do that," right? And he had different people. And the same thing here is, as entrepreneurs, I mean, personally, I'm an idea generating factory, Ryan. I can come up with ideas and help people market their business. You start talking to me about numbers and lock me in a room for a half a day to talk about my numbers, I'm going to die. And so I need somebody like you to go, no, here you go. This is what you need to, and that's why I love this financial clarity dashboard. I think about sitting in my car, you turn your car on, and what do you see? You see your dashboard. You got the speedometer, you got the oil light, the gas gauge, you got the main indicators you need to run your vehicle. You've created this financial clarity dashboard so a small business owner can very quickly look at the key indicators for their business. And I love what you said about a profit and loss statement shows you what's behind you. That's like driving your car looking in the rearview mirror.
Yes.
Good. If you want to accelerate, you better be looking forward, which is what you were talking about of leading indicators. How many prospects do you have coming into your funnel? How many, what's your conversion rate? Things of that nature. That's what your financial clarity dashboard helps them to see around revenue and profit, cash flow, and then you bring it all together in this very cool color-coded thing. So anyway, I love that. We're going to be able to point people to your website to get a copy of that financial clarity dashboard, because it's going to help business owners understand their numbers better. You also talked to me about the 5 problems that small business owners face, right? And I think as I went through that short presentation, I resonated with a lot of them. Well, number 1, business relies all on the owner, right? How many small business owners, Ryan, you've worked with a lot of them. How many of them are really, really good at finance and accounting?
Right. Not very many. That's not their strong suit. Most business owners that we work with, their strong suit is, selling, or if they're in a professional service, it's performing that professional service. They're really, really good at it. But when it comes to their numbers, that's definitely not their strong suit. But oftentimes, business owners, they end up wearing too many hats, and without them there, the business owner basically gets in a place where they can't even take a vacation. Because they're wearing too many hats.
Well, and I remember I served in a ministry family life for a number of years, right? And the president, Dennis Rainey, he was the president. He went out and fundraised and spoke. That's what he did. But we had a chief financial officer, we had a chief marketing officer, we had a chief facilities officer. I mean, he had this board of people who really ran the ministry. Mm-hmm. And as a small business owner, that's what we need to do is build the business to run without us, really, at the end of the day. There might be 1 or 2 things that we do because that's our sweet spot. But we need to be able to delegate, hire these other positions. And for a small business owner, hiring a chief financial officer, or somebody more than a bookkeeper, right? A bookkeeper is great, but they're not doing what you're doing, right? Well, to help us understand the difference of that for a small business owner, the difference is just hiring a bookkeeper or somebody to deal with that, to a fractional chief financial officer like yourself.
Right, absolutely. So a bookkeeper is really there for compliance, really. I mean, they're helping a business owner get on their way to getting, taxes prepared. They are providing some financial statements, typically some basic ones, income statement, a balance sheet. Most bookkeepers that you're going to run across today, probably don't know how to put together a statement of cash flows, which can be really, really critical to a business, especially during its early stages. And I mean, like I said, really they're there for compliance, versus, when we're there, a CFO's job is to analyze a company, take those financials that a bookkeeper's prepared, income statement, balance sheet, produce our own, additional ones, statement of cash flows, probably a budget along with some targets that the business is headed towards, and analyze all of those numbers, analyze the strengths and weaknesses of the business where it stands today, and then give a report and provide a direction and objectives to the operator, to the CEO, on what the company can do better, what the company needs to do differently, and the objectives that they need to meet over the next month or quarter or whatever the period is to be back on track to meet all of their goals. And so as a fractional CFO, I mean, that's really our job, is to analyze the strengths and weaknesses of where we're at and what we've done, and figure out a way to do better in the future, right? Moving forward, which often leads to better profit, with not necessarily even having to have more revenue.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great point, because it's not always making more sales. It's sometimes you're losing money in the business just because you're not watching where the money's going, or there are better, more efficient ways to do things that a chief financial officer can look at that and really, I mean, invest some time. And with your expertise, you can find those much faster than a business owner, because you've seen it happen over and over. I mean, when you've worked with hundreds of companies, I'm sure there are themes that come out, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um,
And not just looking at profit, but also looking at cash flow as well. Five of the drivers that we look at are around cash flow. You can run a business for years without profit, just like Amazon has, but you can't run a business without a day without cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is shocking when people think, talk about Amazon and how they haven't turned a profit in how many years, but it doesn't really matter.
Right.
And it's like, well, how do you do that? But it is cash flow, because cash is king, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And we kind of learned that in the pandemic that came through. Companies that had good cash flow and had good cash on hand survived better, because if you are just month by month on cash flow and that starts drying up, you're toast. But if you got good cash flow, you've got good cash in the bank, you've got good reserves, and your numbers, everything starts working, and you have the opportunity to pivot more quickly, and or calling your financial officer and say, okay, we need to make some serious cuts. What do you think?
Absolutely. Having a financial professional in your corner when something like that comes along, no matter what it is. I mean, it could be a pandemic, it could just be a shift in your industry, right? No matter what it is, having somebody that's a financial professional in your corner for those times can really help you, operate better and operate longer when you're on a cash crunch.
Yeah. Well, and the idea that just hit me, and I don't want to disparage CPAs at all, because I love them and I need them in my life, right? But honestly, for my CPA firm, I'm a number. I'm one of 4,000 or 5,000 business owners they're working with, right? When I have a fractional CFO, I own a part of you, right? I own a portion of your time on a regular basis. So I can function more like a real business, right? If you would, because I've got somebody that I can email, I can talk to on the phone, I can Zoom with, I can say, okay, what's going on? Here's this. And you can tell me, as I look at the dashboard, the financial clarity dashboard, I can say, I don't understand this. What's going on here, Ryan? And you can pour into that, because you've got all kinds of training around revenue, cash flow, profit. Talk to us a little about profit. I know you've got some background with profit first and different things of that nature. Too many times as business owners, we take profit last, right? Unpack that idea of profit first, and how do you help a small business owner understand we do need money off the top for profit for ourselves, so that we can take a vacation and all of that. But just understand at a high level, what is that? How would you help a small business owner understand that whole concept?
Yep. So it was originally, a book that by Mike Michalowicz, and he came out and said, everybody talks about this formula of, well, revenue minus your expenses equals profit. And instead he said, we need to turn that formula around and say, revenue minus my profit first equals what I can spend on my expenses. And, oftentimes with small businesses, we do come in and we like to implement profit first systems to get businesses organized to start with, while they're, still tracking towards their, set targets, but taking your profit first, and then, fitting your expenses into the money that you have left, is really an important concept, because you start, you start setting aside a little bit of profit for yourself and for your business savings long term. And then it just from our experience, once you get in that habit, it just kind of snowballs, right? And as your revenue grows and you just keep putting more and more and more and more and more money into a profit account that's saved to the side for, for you to take distributions from on a quarterly basis, but then you save half of it just to have as capital on hand. If there would have been more businesses that had been doing that for 5 years prior to this pandemic, we would have been in a lot better shape than what we ended up being in.
Yeah.
And so that's really how it works. You set aside, pay yourself first, is really the concept, is pay your profit first.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we started doing that a few years ago. And the cool thing is, Ryan, we got on my profit first account, right, that I can look at, and it gets bigger every month. And
Yep.
what it does is it makes me giddy, because I know I can take a vacation anytime I want. Because I look at that, I'm like, look, I've got $3,000 or $4,000 in there. I can take a vacation, and I don't have to worry about, do I have the money? I have the money because it's there. It's sitting there. I could use it for that. I can use it for all kinds of things. So it builds some flexibility and freedom and joy into my life. You mentioned something there. You just went right through it like most financial guys do. You said distributions. Talk to us a little bit about, how do you help a small business understand how to set up their company, whether I'm an LLC, a sub S, a C Corp. Those are questions that a lot of small business owners never think about, and how important it is to understand how to set up a corporation the right way.
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, once you get a good amount of revenue going into your business, I mean, enough to where you can pay yourself a salary, typically, it is going to be best to opt for an S Corp status. Now, with an S Corp status, that does require you have to pay yourself a salary that is reasonable, quote unquote reasonable. Now that those waters get really murky when we start talking about IRS terminology.
Yeah.
And reasonable salaries. But we really want to help our business owners actually reduce the salary that they're taking, and take more distributions, because when you're taking a salary, when you're taking distributions instead of a salary, you're saving yourself 15.3% on payroll taxes.
Yeah.
So if you're answering the phone, if you're answering emails, if you're cleaning your office, I mean, whatever you're doing, right? If it's lower pay than what you would make as a CEO, right? You can factor that in. That if you keep track of your time and kind of come out with a formula of, well, this is how much time I'm spending answering the phone, I can pay myself what a receptionist would make instead of what a CEO would make.
Yeah.
So we any business that, and we work with a wide number of CPAs, right? We're not actually a firm that does taxes. That's not our specialty. We work with a wide number of CPAs, but we, work very closely with them, and typically, figure out the best structure that works for the business where it's at in its current state.
Yeah, and you said something awesome there. I just really want to unpack that. You don't do the CPA functions, right? And you're not here to replace a CPA. We all have CPAs, and that's great. You work with the CPA and the business owner, because you're a C-suite level executive. You're a chief financial officer that we can bring on staff by hiring you at a fraction of the cost, because I'm getting just a portion of your time, but I get all of your resources, all of your knowledge, and I don't need to employ you full time because I'm a small business owner, right? And so that's the beauty of what you offer. So I just want to help my audience understand. You're not trying to replace a CPA. We love CPAs. They're valuable. They're important. You have to have one, but you also need a chief financial officer.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, looking at it from a small business perspective, on the financial side of things, the ideal setup, in my opinion, right, is you have some sort of bookkeeper, right? That is, they could be either in-house, or maybe they're outsourced as well. Maybe they're fractional as well, depending on business size. Then you have a CFO that works very closely with that bookkeeper, often probably does some coaching of that bookkeeper, right? To get the financials in an order that makes sense.
Yes.
For analysis and for working with the CFO. And then you have a CPA, and that CPA is doing your taxes. You're probably not connecting with your CPA, not nearly as often as you are your fractional CFO. But then all three of those pieces, really work together when it comes tax time, when it comes, the financials are getting finalized, and you're going to and managing for the taxes as well. That's another thing that we kind of help business owners do as fractional CFO, as well as managing, well, what's your tax bill coming up going to look like? And Profit First helps with that as well, because part of it is setting aside money for a tax payment.
It is, because the time you don't want to figure that out is about December 20th.
Yep.
28th. That's not the time to figure that out, because it's about too late, right?
Correct.
And we had this happen a couple of years ago. I had 3 or 4 clients, Ryan, in December call me and say, hey, Michael, we know we owe you some money for the books that we're doing with you. Could we just pay you all this year for tax purposes? I'm like, absolutely. So they paid me. Whoa, you know what that did to my tax bill? I'm like, wow, I've got to be cautious on that, but I've got to plan ahead of time to be looking at how can I mitigate that, because guess what? That's probably going to happen again. So we're better prepared this year. But
absolutely,
things like that do happen. There are people out there who have cash on hand and they want to minimize their taxes. Paying me maximized my taxes, and it was a painful thing in January to write that check to go, wish I would have planned better for that one. That's what a chief financial officer helps you do. The other thing that you are really good at, and it's part of the financial clarity dashboard, is your revenue drivers. Your CPA typically is not going to talk to you about these drivers. And if you don't have a sales team or a marketing team, I mean, you're helping business owners look at leads. How many leads do you need coming in? What's your conversion rate of those leads? What's your retention rate of clients? Because retaining clients is great. How frequently are you making purchases, right? And what's the average purchase value? Those are numbers. Those are numbers we need to know. And you capture them on that financial clarity dashboard. So now I've got them and I can look at them and go, wow, my lead flow is down. I need to turn up my marketing maybe. Or we're getting enough leads, but we're not converting them. That means we have a conversion issue. I don't need to spend more money in marketing. I might need some sales training, or I need to do something, right? It's those numbers that you look at, right, for small business owners to say, here's a place we can dial up something and help you make more profit, make more sales, right? Did I explain that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And and taking it a step further, looking at retention rates are really important as well, because if you're a service-based business, oftentimes keeping clients, costs service hours. So, managing your workflow that way, or managing your capacity amongst your employees is really important. But yeah, absolutely. And if you're, if you're having a conversion rate drop, I mean, that's something that we're absolutely looking at. What happened? Did your market that you were hitting dry up? Do you need to find somewhere else to start doing ads? I mean, there's so many things to look at inside of all of those numbers. But yes, it is critical to be tracking those kind of numbers. Or if your conversions are flip side going up, maybe it's time for a price increase, and man, how important and how impactful price increases can have on revenue.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, it is. And it's the scariest thing for a business owner to raise prices, right?
Yep.
But there's a whole mechanism around that formula. So you look at profit drivers, you look at revenue drivers first, then you've got 5 profit drivers, right? And it's all of these things that, we read books and we're like, oh, that sounds really good. But then life takes over and I've got to go make sales or deal with customers and consumers and clients. And I don't have time to dig into it because really I don't want to, because it's not my sweet spot, right? You get giddy when I start talking about numbers. So does my wife. She's my bookkeeper. She loves this stuff. She's like, I said, what are you doing today? I'm going to go up and pay bills and work on money. I'm like, okay, there you go for it. But that's what jazzes her, right? That's what jazzes you. It doesn't jazz me. I like helping business owners grow through marketing. That's where I want to spend my life. So that's why we need people like you to say, okay, great, you do that. Let me run the numbers, and then let's talk on a monthly or every 2 weeks or something. Let's see how things are going, so we can not just focus on increasing revenue, because that's not always the answer. Increasing profit. I realized last year, Ryan, I was after a gross revenue number, right? But it hit me as like, here's what happened. 2 years ago, we had a great year, gross revenue wise. Net profit was okay. Last year, we had a really decent year in gross revenue, but my net profit climbed dramatically. That's the money I get to keep. And I thought, well, dummy, set a net profit increase. Now that's based on revenue and expenses, but I want more profit out of my business. I want to profit first, right? So I realized it's not about driving after just revenue. I've got to manage my expenses, and I've got to make sure I'm managing my numbers right to get my profit up, because that's how my family lives, right? And that's how my employees are paid and all of that. So that was a revelation for me. I'm sure you would sit there going, duh, right? Because that's what you do all day, every day.
Yeah, I mean, driving, the culture that we live in. I mean, it's all about, oh, well, do you have a 6-figure business? Do you have a 7-figure business? Do you have an 8-figure business? Right. And everybody talks about top line. Why don't we start talking about the bottom line?
Amen, right, brother.
And then even beyond that, right? I mean, it's important to look at, you could have a strong net profit, but guess what? If you went out and purchased a big asset, let's say you had to go buy a company truck, you might have only, your cash flow is going to be severely less than what that profit shows. You might have had, let's just say $60,000 in profit. Let's say you go buy a $50,000 truck. Well, you don't have $60,000 of cash in the bank. You only have 10 because you bought a $50,000 truck. So even beyond, profit, profit is if I can get business owners to shift from looking at revenue to profit, that's a huge jump, and that's important. And then, beyond that, we always look at, well, what are your cash flow drivers, even beyond profit, right?
I love it. I love it, man. We could go on for, hours here, because even though I'm not a numbers guy, I get passionate because everything we're talking about is business growth. And that's my passion. That's my focus, is helping business owners grow and serve more clients. And we do that when our revenues are high, and we're managing things well, our profit is good, and we're loving life. That's what you help people do. So Ryan, we've talked a little bit about your financial clarity dashboard here. That's a download that somebody can get. It's really it's a spreadsheet that Ryan's put together that even I can understand. It's got 4 different tabs on it, and you've got a little presentation, but all of this is on your website, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Where is that?
www.financialclarityllc.com. I'm sure we can put that in the show notes.
Yep.
But I will absolutely have a link on there to the presentation and to the presentation workbook as well, my financial clarity dashboard.
That's awesome. So financialclarityllc.com is the place to go to check out Ryan and all that he has. It's a phenomenal concept. He's a great guy. He's got lots of wisdom for us. But if you're a small business owner out there and you're not managing your numbers, you're not understanding how you can have a more profitable business, higher revenues, and less stress in life, really, the answer might be a fractional chief financial officer, somebody like Ryan. So let me just encourage you, reach out to Ryan, financialclarityllc.com, and see what he has to offer. Pick up the copy of the Financial Clarity Dashboard. Look at that. Have a conversation with him. Just schedule a Zoom call with him or something, and reach out and see how he might be able to help you have a better year next year than you're having this year, simply by managing your numbers more effectively. Ryan, thank you so much for just a snapshot and a great conversation around how we can increase our profitability and our revenue in our business.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, Michael.
You are welcome. Take care, my friend.
Thank you. You too.